Hello everyone, today's video is going to be extremely critical if you really want to improve your chess by learning the opening Ruy Lopez. Ruy Lopez is an opening that is such a popular opening that each and every player in the best of the world have already tried out this particular opening. You can choose any particular chess player in the world and that particular player has definitely played this particular opening, which is also known as the Ruy Lopez Opening. This opening has been played in the World Championship matches for hundreds of years. So you can already sense how powerful and essential it is to learn this particular opening. I don't want to waste any single time, so let's quickly jump into the video. So, Ruy Lopez is an opening which is played from the white side, and we start the game with 1 e4. Our opponent plays the move e5. We develop the knight to f3, hitting the pawn on e5, and black plays the move knight to c6. And after knight c6, as you guys know, that bishop c4 is kind of a most popular move, and even bishop to b5 is a powerful move. But in today's video, we are going to discuss the move bishop to b5. And the bishop b5, from this particular moment onwards, the Ruy Lopez opening begins. After bishop b5, what is the idea? After bishop b5, we are hitting this knight, and our idea is to capture this knight followed by capturing the pawn on e5. So black plays the move a6. We simply go bishop to a4. The point here is that many players don't know that if we try to capture this knight, after pawn takes, if we try to capture the e5 pawn, black can simply play the move queen to d4, hitting the knight as well as the pawn. So the knight move, we can simply capture the pawn, and you can already claim that black is having a slight advantage because of the bishop pair. So that is the thing, we keep the bishop pair. We play the move bishop to a4, and now here comes the knight to f6. After knight f6, black is preparing to capture the e4 pawn and also developing the knight. We simply castle up. If we play the move c3, black can play the move h6, and now we can simply play the move d4. So this is the original idea that we want to achieve in this particular position. We want to play the move c3 followed by d4 and having a pretty nice center control. Just imagining that the e4 pawn is not hanging for now. That is our idea. If we try to play the move d4 straight onward, black can happily capture it and there's no problem. That is the reason we first castle, and here if case black captures the pawn, we can already play the move rook e1 hitting this knight. For example, after d5 we can already capture this knight, push the pawn to d3 hitting this knight, and after knight into e5, material wise the position is even. But the position wise, the rook is powerful, knight into c6 is coming up, and the position is already good for white. So this is what happens if black plays the move knight into e4. Now let's try to discuss what happens if black plays the move bishop to c5. After bishop c5, white can simply play the move c3. And after c3, white's idea is already to play the move d4. Which basically helps white to push this pawn and also hitting this bishop. So that is the reason the bishop to c5 is not a good move, because it only helps white pushing the pawn in the center and trying to grab a good amount of center. For example, after c3 short castle, d4, trading off a pawn, and after bishop a6, a7, you can already sense how white is having such a good center. That is the reason black plays the move bishop to e7. And after rook to e1, simply defending the pawn, because after bishop e7, black can actually capture this pawn. Because, for example, after c3, knight into e4, rook e1, after the knight can move, you can see how this pin is no longer annoying because the bishop is on e7. So we play the move rook e1 defending this pawn now, and here black plays the move b5. The reason is, if black tries to castle in this position, now as the pawn on e4 is defended by the rook, we can happily capture this knight, followed by capturing on e5, and we are simply a pawn up and having a better position. That is the reason black must play the move b5, hitting this bishop now because the pawn on e4 is defended already. Bishop to b3, and now black plays the move d6. After d6, black simply protects up the pawn, and we play the move c3. The idea is to play the move d4. And the advantage of c3 here is, As after d6, the pawn on e5 is already defended, so black is aiming. For example, if white plays a move like h3, black would be happy to play the move knight to a5, getting rid of this powerful monster bishop on b3. So it is always a good idea to play the move c3 in these types of position, making a square of the bishop to go back on c2 after knight to a5. So that is the reason black castle, and now finally you play the move h3. That's correct. The most natural move looks like to play the move g4. That is the reason we played the move c3. But the problem after d4 here is black can simply play the move bishop to g4, pinning up this knight, and now this pin is very irritating. For example, if white pushes up the pawn to h3, black would be happy to capture this knight, and after queen takes, you can already sense how black will simply win a pawn as well as the game. So that is the reason we first play the move h3, trying to take over the g4 square, and after h3, black plays the move knight to a5. For example, if black makes continuous natural move, which is bishop to b7, we can already play the move d4 and already claim that we are having a slight advantage because of this beautiful center. So knight to a5 is the main move, hitting this bishop, and now finally playing the move c5, trying to take control of the center. After c5, we do not get afraid, but still trying to open up the center by playing the move d4. And after d4, there are many ways for black to continue in this position. If black makes simply trading the center, after knight d4, you can already sense who is having the advantage. Black is having an isolated pawn, which gives a slight better advantage to white. And this e4 pawn is a good pawn. So knight to c3, as there is no pawn on c3, so you can already sense how white is having a good amount of advantage. And even knight to f5 could be an idea in the future. So that is the reason cd4 is already not a good idea. If black plays the move knight c6, putting more pressure on the pawn on d4, we can happily push the pawn to d5, hitting this knight and getting an extra move. So the best move for black is to play the move queen to c7. The idea of queen to c7 here is, for example, if black makes a normal move like h6, white would love to capture on e5, followed by capturing with the knight, and we are already a pawn up. So that is the reason black doesn't want it, so black plays the move queen to c7 in order to protect the pawn on e5. And here, we play the move knight to d2. So the point here is, the one who decides to trade in the center will lead to a bad position. So try to keep the tension over the board, in the center of the board, and the player who cracks and decide to trade off the pieces in the center will get a bad position. So always remember. So after knight to d2, what is the idea? For example, after bishop g7, simply both sides developing the pieces, we play the move knight f1, and now we put the knight to g3. So this is the most traditional journey of the knight of b1. It comes to d2, followed by f1 to g3. And the idea of g3 knight here is, now white is preparing to play the move knight to f5, which is the nice outpost for the knight. The idea could be to play the move knight to h5 followed by knight f5. So these are the two basic ideas in this particular position. So after knight to g3, this is how white should play in this particular position. And remember, whenever black trades in the center, you are the one having the advantage because of the weak pawn on the d6. So this is how you should play Ruy Lopez Opening, and this is how any player in the world of chess, the best players in the world, play chess. They do not memorize the opening, but they try to understand the logic of each and every move so that it would be helpful for them to understand everything, what the move they are making, what is the logic behind each and every move. That is the purpose of me making this particular video, because first of all, this opening is the most highly played opening with the white pieces, which is definitely a very famous opening, and this is the opening which gives you a slight advantage from the start if you're playing with the white pieces. And yeah, that's how you play such an opening. So there was a request I want to discuss. that after bishop to b3, we have discussed d7. What happens if black goes for playing the move short castle? The point is after c3, black is not going to play the move g6, but going to play the move d5. And the idea here is after pawn takes, knight takes, white captures the pawn on e5 and eventually white is a pawn up. After c6, d4, bishop d6 hitting the rook goes back. Black plays the move queen h4 hitting this h2 pawn. So white must play the move g3, queen h3. And practically speaking, white is a pawn up, but black is having more than enough compensation for the pawn. This opening is also known as the martial attack. And yeah, in the best of the world, this position is already considered as a draw. But in the lower level, in the club level, definitely this position is the most playable opening if you are playing with the black pieces. If like from both the sides, I would say, because white is having the material advantage as well. So if you really want to play this particular opening, you must be prepared. So this is how you must play the Ruy Lopez opening if your opponent plays the best move in the tournament games. Because if you are playing a tournament at the club level or in the like around 18 to 2000 rated players, they would be definitely ready to prepare against it. And yeah, it's a good way to play against them, this particular opening. So this is how you prepare an opening. This is how you play the Ruy Lopez opening. I think this video might have helped you to improve your game. If it did, then make sure to like the video, share this video with everyone, and make sure to subscribe to our channel because we are going to come up with these exciting videos like this. So till then, stay tuned and keep watching OneShot Chess.